The South Africa's sixth parliament has been the most challenging yet in our country's democratic dispensation in a post-Zuma world where the intricate machinery of state capture was dismantled and laid bare before all of us to see. In the Zondo Commission and its report, it was Parliament itself that was implicated as one of the enablers of the rampant corruption under the ANC. Much like the fifth parliament that preceded it, South Africa's sixth parliament saw a return of the political abuse by the ANC to stifle oversight, institute cover-ups, and a culture of executive protection, and essentially stop the ability of members of parliament to do their work, which is holding the executive to account. In this climate of ANC unaccountability, Parliament also laboured under COVID-19, the pandemic which saw a national shutdown across the country, which centralised extensive power within the executive under the Disaster Management Act and made no provision whatsoever for parliamentary oversight during this time. But perhaps the biggest failure of the sixth parliament was the suboptimal performance of the national executive under President Ramaphosa, who himself evaded Parliament and treated it much in the same way as his predecessor.
For all of his great promises of reform upon his election, President Ramaphosa has not tabled a single piece of legislation that he can point to as a signature piece of legislation to entrench the so-called New Dawn. That New Dawn has since disappeared like the morning mist.
The following parties will be represented in the 6th National Assembly. The official opposition in the 6th Parliament will be the Democratic Alliance with 84 seats.
National Coronavirus Command Council has decided to enforce a nationwide lockdown for 21 days with effect from midnight on Thursday, the 26th of March.
We welcome the announcement by the President that we will, as from next week, be looking at a risk-adjusted strategy when it comes to our lockdown in South Africa.
And exactly what are you arguing as the Democratic Alliance?
Well, Criselda, currently the personal care industry is one of very few industries that are indefinitely outlier when one considers the amount of industries and the amount of people that have been allowed to go back to work under level 3. Under the current regulations, it is banned indefinitely. And we believe that this is in violation of Section 22 of the Constitution, which guarantees the right to every South African to freely trade and to make a living. Now, if you are banned indefinitely from doing so, it stands to reason that that is unlawful and invalid.
South Africa still remains on lockdown level 1 at the moment, and let's speak to the DA's leader, John Steenhuisen, who joins us now virtually. Thank you very much for your time here on All Angles, sir. This is obviously your plea because of the fact that we're not seeing as many hospitalizations and deaths as we did during the previous waves.
That is correct. We've always had a balanced and adjusted approach to dealing with the virus. When it has been at more virulent strains, we've locked down. Where it has been less, we've eased up. And I think that given the fact that there's massively low hospitalization rates across the country, I think that what we now need to do is to give our economy the kickstart and boost that it needs to be able to get moving again and to be able to be profitable and to create the much needed jobs that we need in South Africa.
Hello, South Africa, and welcome back to CoronaCast, your twice-weekly information show keeping you up to speed with the latest information relating to the coronavirus and its impact on South Africa.
Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's UIF Bulletin. I'm Michael Carlo, the DA Shadow Minister of Employment and Labour. After a very long wait, the Minister of Employment and Labour eventually issued a directive last week for TERS for the period 1 July to 15th of August 2020. and applications for this period opened on Monday, the 17th of August.
There's an indication of the unsuitability of this minister to hold this position. And I would really request that we as a committee include in our report recommendations on this aspect.
I am waiting for that opportunity when which will be presented to me to answer questions.
The next witness is Mr. James Self. I would just like to place on record very briefly some of the key features of your experience and political history. You say there you have been a politician for a period in excess of 41 years and active in the Democratic Alliance since its foundation. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
You were elected to the Senate in May of 1994 and you became a Member of Parliament in the National Assembly in 1999. Is that correct?
That is correct.
You have remained a Member of Parliament in the National Assembly since then, so you are still a Member of Parliament.
That is correct. There are many calls over many years that these events should be investigated either by the committee or by some appropriate inquiry, but it normally fell on deaf ears.
It became very obvious to us that the New Age newspaper was receiving special deals based on nothing more than the association with the ANC and the obvious close relations between the Gupta family and, at the time, Jacob Zuma. So Deputy President Ramaphosa was the leader of government business. He was also the head of the war room dealing with the energy crisis, and he was the head of the ANC's cadre deployment operation. I then say this past week we have witnessed crisis management involving a private ANC-NNC meeting resulting as a result of the governing party being caught red-handed without any more lies to hide.
May I just say, Chair, you were talking about, to the extent that other members of Parliament were not aware of the state of PRASA or rail. All they had to do was to go to any train station anywhere in the country, and they would just see for themselves.
The fact that you put before the National Assembly motion is important in another respect, namely those who may not have taken the trouble to go to train stations and see what was happening. When you put in those motions, they would have seen that you were calling for certain things to be done.
The long and short of it is that PRASA needed to be investigated, and there was agreement. And I was very hopeful and very excited that this was going to take place.
But that didn't happen, did it?
You could see the appetite was losing very quickly. And my reading was something is going on behind the scenes, and someone is trying to either prevent this from happening or delaying it or something.
The Democratic Alliance spends your money on delivering services where we are in charge. Unemployment is the lowest and we do not tolerate corruption. Even the national government admits the best run municipalities are all governed by the DA. But the choice is yours. I want something different, something better. Because that's what a local government election is all about. Who do I trust to deliver services, to ensure my town is run properly and to ensure that public money is spent on the public? Now, it's very easy to make promises. Any party can do that. But only one party has a proven track record of service delivery. I'm standing here on the Lungkloof Road where the Eastern Cape becomes the Western Cape. And the road beneath my feet tells the story of the DA difference far better than I ever could. On election day, voters have to ask themselves, is this what I want? Or is that what I want? While others talk and promise, the DA gets things done.
South Africa's largest opposition party, the Democratic Alliance, has emerged victorious in the mayor polls held in the country's 3 major cities. The Democratic Alliance's Randall Williams was elected unopposed as the mayor of Pretoria, a day after the ruling African National Congress lost control of Johannesburg. On Monday, councillors elected another DA candidate as mayor of the country's economic hub and the largest city, Johannesburg. The Democratic Alliance, remember, is the ANC's biggest opponent, and its victory was ascertained by the support of Marxist economic freedom fighters, also known as the EFF. DA leader John Steenhuisen, who during the election was adamant that he would do no deal with the EFF, told reporters his party's victories meant a psychological threshold had been crossed. He said, I'm quoting, "Today the whole of South Africa knows that the ANC can be beaten."
Mr. President, 6 years ago you said in this House, and I quote, "In 2 years' time, Eskom's problems will be a thing of the past. People won't even remember load shedding."
Let me start by saying today that I am very disappointed that the ANC speakers in this debate did not mention the achievements of the ANC. So I am going to mention the achievements of the ANC for them. And let me start. Achievement number 1, record fuel prices. Achievement number 2, record food prices. Achievement number 3, the highest unemployment rate in the world. The next achievement of the ANC, the highest youth unemployment rate in the world. Record child stunting. And one of the world's worst education systems. And last but not least, state capture. One of the biggest achievements of the ANC over the last decade.
Well, certainly a historic day here in Parliament. We promised South Africans that we would do everything we can to defeat the attempts to amend Section 25 of the Constitution to allow for expropriation without compensation, and we've done it. In Parliament today, the ANC were not able to get a majority. Parties stood together to defend the Constitution, which now remains intact. This is a significant day for South Africa because it means that property rights are protected. It means that our Constitution has held the line against attempts to try and amend it.
The raging flames rose high above the rooftops of Cape Town, a plume of billowing smoke visible from across the city.
So then a large fire has broken out at South Africa's Parliament building in Cape Town. It's said to have started in offices, but flames have now spread to the National Assembly building. An emergency services spokesman says cracks have been forming in the building's walls.
What support is there to help you put food on the table and get back on your feet? If we consider the damage decades of corruption have done to our nation's welfare system and the soaring cost of living, national government needs to do much more to assist poor and vulnerable South Africans.
President Cyril Ramaphosa charged a 3-person independent group to look into claims that South Africa had supplied weapons to Russia via the Russian cargo ship Lady R. The commission was headed by retired Judge Phineas Mojapelo. The Democratic Alliance has strongly rejected the government's attempts to release selective portions of the report and is demanding the complete disclosure on the matter. Joining us to take this matter further is Democratic Alliance's MP, Gwebus Murray. A very good morning to you. Thank you so much for your time. We understand that the Lady R report landed on President Cyril Ramaphosa's desk yesterday, but some parts may not be made public. What is your reaction to this?
Well, good morning, Paul. Good morning to your viewers. Obviously, one has questioned it right from the beginning when the president announced the panel, but also announced simultaneously that the report would not be made available to the public. So that begs the question. So first of all, why was it necessary for a panel in this regard if nothing was done wrong?
On Tuesday, we went for an oversight at the Beit Bridge border post, and there was a presentation that was given to us by the Department of Home Affairs. And with that presentation and what we have witnessed there, it has become more evident that the chaos that we have witnessed there was caused by the failure of the department to foresee the situation and to have a proper plan of how they are going to manage the traffic flow.
today to say, so far and no further. Never again, and not in our name, will you continue to rob, will you continue to steal, and will you continue to let us suffer as you and your corrupt, inept comrades carry on.
This is a starting point, it's not an ending point. We're calling for citizens across South Africa, across political formations, across civil society, to stand up and demonstrate to government that we reject this increase. We're not going to accept it, we're not going to pay the premium for corruption anymore, and we're not going to sit back and tolerate load shedding, blackouts that are stealing our children's future and destroying our businesses and wrecking our economy. This is a message for President Cyril Ramaphosa. Mr. President, since the Phala scandal and the load-shedding crisis hit South Africa, you have been conspicuous by your absence. This stands in very stark contrast to your regular updates during the COVID-19 pandemic.
Speak now to the DA's Shadow Minister of Tourism, Manny de Freitas, who joins us live now. Thank you so much for your time. We heard from that briefing earlier on from SA Tourism seeking to clarify what's going on here. What's your take?
Well, the briefing provided more questions than answers, to be honest. First of all, they confirmed that there was no kind of scientific basis on how they chose the club in the first place. They say that it was because we want to maximize our exposure. But the point is that South Africa is an easy sell. We have a good reputation for being a beautiful country, great people, culture, cuisine, everything that goes with it. So it's not like we need to sell the country again. What we should be doing is pumping that 1 billion rands locally to helping with enterprises who've been suffering during COVID and now during load shedding, where they've been losing, enterprises have been losing jobs, closing companies, and it's getting more and more difficult, particularly with load shedding. So what government should be doing is rather spend the money on local resources, perhaps building infrastructure, assisting enterprises, and making our product even better than what it is.
I'm going to be speaking to the party's Shadow Minister for Higher Education, Chantal King. Ma'am, thank you so much for speaking with us today. First of all, the statement you made during the briefing, you said something along the lines of, this all boils down to an ICT problem. Is that where it all stems from?
Basically, yes, that's where it all stems from. We were provided with a brief from NSFAS that they actually have a long-term challenge. They have huge funding shortfall to sort out the ICT system. And you can actually see that's where it catapults into the interface between NSFAS system and those of the institutions. It is not interlinked, it is not synced. So at the end of the day, students' payments are delayed because of registration schedules that's not going through on time. But it is also delayed because NSFAS cannot make funding decisions quickly from the data that they receive from SASSA and South African Revenue Services. So that's the challenge that they have and why students at the end of the day are now being defunded because of that systems challenge.
As has become a routine, the former chairman of the ANC Cadre Deployment Committee offered us a series of platitudes about building a capable state at the State of the Nation address. And also, as usual, he entirely avoided the most important cause of the collapse of the South African state, namely the corrupt ANC Cadre Deployment Committee that he led during the height of the Zuma administration. Over the past 4 years, the DA has run a laser-focused campaign against cadre deployment corruption.
Mr. President, how dare you stand up here and coldly quote statistics of failed local government as if you are not part of the failure of local government. You, sir, spent 4 years as Deputy President, the leader of government business, and today marks the 5th anniversary of your tenure as President. That's 9 years that you have had to fix local government, sir. Your very own 9 wasted years.
Now I am joined by the DA Shadow Minister for Basic Education, Batolile Bax Nodada. Hello Bax and welcome to the live broadcast. Please tell us, what are we doing in Parliament today and why is it so important?
Look, good morning, Naz, and good morning to the viewers as well. Today, we're basically outside Parliament to picket against the Basic Education Laws Amendment Bill, which is a draconian law that has been brought to Parliament for us to consider for a vote today and to debate today. And ultimately, this law will be taking away powers of school governing bodies, of parents, of communities that know what is best for their children in terms of their admission and language policies. It is these parents that know how many children can attend schools in a classroom, how many classrooms they have, what the language of speaking is, and ultimately it is these parents that know what is best for their children. And this draconian law is quite extensive and ultimately will rob our children from getting good quality education. So we've come out with civil society organizations, political parties to basically say no to the Basic Education Laws Amendment Bill.
Thank you, Bax.
Her very cozy relationship, and some say intimate relationship with her boss, the rather odious Menzi Simelane, led to speedy promotions and her very vocal and active support of his role in the capture of the NPA. One cannot leave her role. You don't have to like it. You don't have to like it.
DA MP Glynis Breitenbach didn't hold back when explaining why her party rejected Koleka Ngaleka's nomination as public protector. She refused to withdraw her remarks and was ordered to leave the House. The Democratic Alliance argues National Assembly Speaker Nosiviwe Mapisa Nkakula incorrectly applied the House rules when she ruled Breitenbach's comments were out of order.
Rule 88 would very clearly acknowledge that that does not apply to Advocate Koleka. She is not the holder of public office, she's not yet appointed, nor is she a judge, nor is her removal as the Deputy Public Protector consequent on a decision by Parliament. She is appointed and disappointed by the Public Protector. And I can confirm, after being up there, that the situation is disastrous. The 60,000 containers that are aboard vessels just out to sea there are now piling up due to the collapse of the Durban port at the hands of Transnet, which has absolutely failed to maintain and upgrade port infrastructure for decades.
But accountability has to start with Minister Pravin Gordhan. And so if heads must roll, it must start with Minister Pravin Gordhan. It must start at the top and not at the bottom. And so we're going to call him to come and account.
How do you try and understand whether we were stage 8 or stage 6? What's the actual measurement in this case?
Gareth, maybe there's a little bit of confusion because they're busy working, having decided to increase the stages to stage 16. There's a new NRS system out that is out for draft comment. I think the comment's closed on the 2nd of November. So these will then obviously look at a different mechanism for determining stages of load shedding, and those work on a percentage base of demand versus supply. In other words, what is demanded and what do they have available.